Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to 31 Days of Pomp-o-Ween. If you tuned in yesterday, you will have seen that I did Sandman from the comic book of the same name, and I could not do him without doing one of my all-time favorite characters as well, his sister, Death. Her and Delirium are my two favorites. I've cosplayed as Delirium twice before. I'll insert it up here. And Death was actually my first ever cosplay. It was very much a closet cosplay. I just grabbed things that I already had in my closet and painted myself white and went to the convention, and I had black hair at the time. I'm going to leave a picture right here. So it all worked out well, but I've never dressed up as her since, so I figured now would be the perfect time to do it. If you're invited to a last minute Halloween party, I think this is a great and easy costume, especially if you have black hair or if you already own a black wig. The tricky part is getting the white body paint right. Today I'm going to talk about the two different types of body paint that you can use and what to do for best results. Today I'm going to talk about the two most common body paints that you can use and what to do for best results. So before I get started, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to hit that bell button so that you'll be notified every time I upload. And as you know, this month I'm uploading once a day, so that's going to be 31 Halloween tutorials for you guys. So be sure to check back in every day for something new. As you can probably tell, my eyebrows look a little funky, and that's because I already covered them up. If you don't know how to do that, I'm going to link right up here to my brow cover-up tutorial. I have a whole separate video on how to do that. Alright, so now that all that's out of the way, let's get to it. So today I'm going to be using two different types of face paint. For my face, I'm going to be using the Mayron Clown White Light. This is my favorite white cream makeup, and I'll tell you why in a second. And then for my body, I'm going to use a water-based face paint from Wolf. So why am I using two separate ones? Let me start applying this on my face, and I'll talk as I do it. I'm going to be using a makeup sponge to apply this, and I just like to go straight into it and then just start dabbing on my face. So the reason I like using a cream-based product for my face and not for my body is because with a cream, you tend to get a more opaque, more even application, but you have to set it. And for your body, that doesn't really work. You can't apply a cream all on your body. Then you're going to be super sticky because cream makeups don't set by themselves. And then you have to set it with a powder, but even then, it's not completely transfer proof. So I don't like using things on my body that are not transfer proof. Another reason is because you can see how I'm applying it. I'm applying it with dabbing motions. For you to do this on your body would take forever. And so I just reserve this for the face. And I'm using a dampened beauty sponge, but you can use a non-dampened one too. I find that doesn't really matter. It just can't be soaking wet. And you can see that even with this method of application, it still gets patchy in some areas, and you have to like work it in and then add some more and layer it so that it gets really, really even. So Death typically has pale white skin. I know that some cosplayers don't go full white. They do something more like this, where it's just a very light layer of white. And today I'm actually going to go kind of like a halfway in between both. I went sort of heavy-handed on this side, but that's just because I was talking and I was distracted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the white the strongest on the high points of my face. On the rest, I'm just going to want kind of like a soft wash of white. And I typically like doing that with white because it helps to give dimension to the face. If you're painting yourself all white, how are you going to highlight white? You can't get brighter than white, right? So what I like to do is apply the base at like a 50 to 60% opacity, maybe a bit more, and then concentrate it so that it's 100% opacity on the high points of the face. So right now I'm just kind of like dragging the product that's already on my face around onto other areas of my face so that I get it to that like 50 to 60% opacity. Oh, and I should mention the reason I covered up my eyebrows is because she has very thin brows. So if you already have very thin brows, then you won't have to do that step, but I have much thicker brows than hers. Not that mine are thick by any means whatsoever, but I want to do the true 80s goth brow, and that is really, really thin, and so I just decided to cover mine up. So now that I'm pretty much happy with the coverage for the base, I'm going to go ahead and highlight. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the white, and I'm just going to concentrate it on the high points of my face. So you can see that because I didn't do a full opacity on my entire face, I'm able to highlight certain areas. And I'm also going to contour after this too. So I want to highlight my cheekbones, my chin, my cupid's bow area, And then you can also use the other side of the sponge to kind of help blend out those edges down my nose. And then you'll see that the color also concentrates on top of the glue of the brow cover-up. So I am going to have to apply a much thicker layer around it to kind of hide that glue. But you can see already that it adds a lot of dimension to the face when you do this technique. And then if you want to really accentuate the cheekbone contour, you can also highlight the jaw a little bit. I feel like she has a more square face than I do, so I'm probably not going to contour my cheekbones too much. And you'll see I'm not applying this to my neck either. From the neck down, I'm going to use my other face paint. You can also do this with a white concealer if you have one instead of Clown White Light. Also, don't use Clown White. That is super sticky and super hard to work with. I really recommend getting the Clown White Light. There's a huge difference between the two products. I'm also taking this on a flat brush so I can really concentrate it where I want it, around the glue, so I can hide it a little bit better. You can use this to apply under the eyes where the sponge doesn't reach as well. Now that this base is done, I have to set it. So I'm going to go in with some translucent powder. This is the RCMA No Color Powder. If you've been on this channel, you've probably seen this before. This is a fake hair applicator and I use it for powder instead. So what I do once I'm happy with the application is I take this and I powder my face, and I use this little contraption because I don't want to risk moving any of the makeup that's on my face. You totally don't need to use this. This is just a tool that I have. You can just load up a powder puff, make sure it's really loaded with powder, and then just powder your entire face. And I'm gonna actually do that in a second as well, but I just like doing a layer like this first. Being careful not to breathe in all the powder. And I wanna make sure that my eyes aren't creasing. Then I'm going to get some powder on the puff and just pat away, making sure to load it with more powder as I continue. I really don't want to disrupt the white that's underneath. Making sure especially to get like the little crevices and corners, like around your nose. Now while that powder kind of sets everything, I'm gonna move on to my body. Gonna bring my straps down. And as I said, I'm going to be using the Wolf Water Activated Face Paint. So for that, you're going to need water. And you don't want to get it too wet. I'm going to take that on a fluffy brush and just swirl it in the product. And what you're going to do with this is apply it in regular kind of painting strokes. And I like to work on an area until it's almost dry, because that way you get rid of the streakiness. You can get a lot of streakiness when working with water activated face paints, but if you keep working in that area until it's like almost dry, you'll see that it becomes a lot more uniform. As it dries, you can kind of buff it out, which you can't really do while it's still super wet. And I'm kind of just noticing that there's still product on my brush that I can use. It still hasn't dried out yet, and I just like working that way, kind of crisscross motions. You want to go in different directions on a same spot. And the reason I'm using the water activated face paint is because once it dries, it becomes transfer proof. The only downside is if you sweat, it's probably going to come off, because since you activate it with water, you also remove it with water. Instead of activating it with water, if you want it to have more staying power, you can activate it with a Ben Nye Final Seal, and that's a makeup sealer, and that will create a better bond for the paint. And so that's one way if you want to have your paint last longer. And the tricky thing with this kind of paint is you can't really layer without removing what's underneath. If your brush is too wet, it's going to reactivate what's underneath. So that's why you have to work with a kind of drier brush. You don't want to disrupt what's underneath at all. And you can see that you can cover a much bigger area than with the product that I used on my face. It is, however, a little bit tricky. Let me zoom you in so you can see the streakiness that I'm talking about. So you can see here, and I kind of have to work fast because it's drying as I speak, but you can see how streaky it can get. And that's why you have to work over the same area over and over until it's almost dry. You just have to keep on working that area, keep going and back and forth. And you don't want to be heavy-handed because that will also disrupt what's underneath. You want to have a very light touch for this. And so you'll see that the more that I work the paint as it dries, the more even it will be. And this takes practice. This has taken me years to kind of learn and master and whatnot. So don't be afraid if it doesn't work out the first time you do it. Nothing ever does. You just have to keep at it and keep practicing. But now I'm gonna load my brush with more product. But as I said, you don't want to soak the brush. The brush can't be soaking wet. It's not like dripping in paint. It's loaded with paint, but it's not dripping wet. And you just keep applying kind of in that same motion, creating layers that won't disrupt each other, that will just help each other. And if you start getting patches where you've removed color, you can take your brush and just kind of pat it on, almost like a dabbing motion. And I find that that helps to fill up patches without really moving anything around. So that's another way to kind of cover up patchy areas when they arise, because they will arise. This is white face paint. This is the hardest color to do evenly. That's why usually professionals, they do white bases with airbrush. And that's what I typically do if I'm on set and I have to do a super even white base. I'll typically just use an airbrush. See this patch right here? So now I've got more product on my brush and I'm just going to pat it over that area. I might not be able to cover it the first time around, but it's all about building up layers. But see, the more you work on an area, the bigger the patch. So sometimes what you got to do is move the stuff around it, and that creates kind of like a bigger patch. Sometimes bigger patches are easier to cover up than small ones. Now I've let all this dry, I'm going to go in with another layer to try to make things a little bit more even. And I'm doing the patting technique this time because there's a lot of paint on my body, so I really don't want to disrupt what's already there. I don't want to drag anything. So I find that the patting technique is best for when there are already a lot of layers on the skin. And when I first did Death, bless my heart, I only had like a TV paint stick. It was a cream makeup product, and what I did is I kind of painted it on my body, just like stripes, and then I got body lotion, mixed it in my hands, and then just used that to spread the product, and that actually kind of worked. That technique was actually pretty genius, if I do say so myself. I was not even close to being a makeup artist at the time. I was just like, this is creamy. I bet that more cream will help it glide better. And it did. And that's actually something I do often now with foundation. When I want to sheer it out, I just mix a little bit of moisturizer into it. It's the same concept. But yeah, I didn't set it. I didn't really know about setting cream products. I just put it on and went to the convention. And while we're here, let's not forget the ears. You do have to paint them as well because they probably are going to peek through the wig a little bit. I hate painting my ears. It feels awful, but it is necessary when changing your skin color for a look like this. And then if you really want to, if you have some patches that you just can't cover up and they seem to be getting worse and worse, like typically on the high points, like the collarbone and the shoulders, you can take a little bit of that cream paint and just go on that area just to even it out a little bit. I do not recommend doing this for your entire body. And then you will have to set those areas as well. And then what I'm doing, which is really risky, is I'm going with one last layer of the water base on top, because that cream kind of creates a barrier between this layer and the old layers of the water base, so I'm able to add another layer without disrupting them. Now to make sure that the white is really opaque and really uniform in color, I'm going to further set everything with a white eyeshadow. This is Zen by Cosette. I really love this shadow. It's really pigmented and really opaque, and I'm just going to pack that on a dense fluffy brush, and I'm going to highlight the highest points of my face all over again. Oh, but be sure to dust off the excess powder before you do this. So remember all that powder that I left just resting on my face? Now's the time to get rid of it. And then we can go in with the eyeshadow. And you'll see that this just adds a little bit more opacity to everything. And then I'm also able to get right on my lid and really make sure everything is set. See, it just adds a little bit more coverage. See, between this side and this side. Here the white is a little bit more white, a little bit more opaque. But again, I'm not applying it to where I'm going to contour. You can see kind of a contour already forming, like on my nose, under my cheekbones. I'm just adding this to the high points. You can also add it to the high points of your body, like the collarbone and your shoulders. Now, just to add a little bit of dimension to the face and the body, I'm going to do a little bit of contouring, and I'm going in with the Lunatic Cosmetics Lab Contour Palette Volume 2, and this has some lovely, lovely grays in it. I'm going to start off with the lightest gray on a small face brush, and I'm just going to apply that to the hollows of my cheeks. I don't want to contour under my cheekbones too much because Death does have a really square face, much more square than mine. Then I'm also going to contour my forehead, and I'm going to be wearing a wig, so I'm not too worried about this, but I still want to contour mainly the top of my forehead to really kind of shrink it down, make my face seem a little more square. I'm really blending that out so it's not like a stark line. And Death doesn't wear any blush, so I'm just kind of applying this as if it were blush. I'm applying it to the apples of my cheeks just to give a tiny bit of dimension to the face. And because I don't want the contour to be super harsh, super like straight and angular, I want to make my face seem wider a little bit. I'm also going to take that and contour my nose. She does have a very straight nose, so I just want to mimic that a little bit. You'll want to contour under the nose as well. I'm going to go in with an eye brush to really define the tip of my nose. And if you ever think you've gone a little bit too hard on the contour, you can just take your white eyeshadow again and just pack that on top. I'm actually going to pack some on the sides of my face to kind of broaden it a little bit more. And then I'm also going to contour my chin because I have quite a long chin. So I just want to kind of do the same thing that I did with the forehead. Just give it the appearance that it's a little bit smaller than it actually is. And I think I'm actually going to intensify all those contours with the slightly darker gray. Just gonna, whoop. These colors are very pigmented, so please be careful. I'm using a very, very light hand, but I'm just going to take that wherever I contoured just to intensify the color a little bit more. And you can blend it out with the lighter color. You can use that to help. And doing that on my chin just a little bit. I don't want it to look like I've got a beard going on. Just want to add some more dimension to the face. Then the tiniest bit to my nose. Then just whatever is left on this brush, just going to lightly dust that. And I'm kind of doing the contour lower than what I would typically do it on the hollows of my cheeks because that will widen your face a bit. To give my body some dimension, I'm also going to contour mainly around my collarbone where it's deepest right here. And that will just help to add some dimension. You can already see I only did a little bit, but it gives the impression of more volume. Here it's just kind of everything super flat. And so I just want to just add a little bit of that volume back into my skin. And that's the main thing when changing your skin color into an unnatural color. So if you're doing a cosplay where you have to paint yourself green or red or whatever color it is, the biggest kind of mistake is not contouring your body as well because it'll just look super dimensionless and really flat and unrealistic. But if you do a tiny bit of contouring, just using like a darker version of the color that you've got as your base, it makes it seem a little more realistic. You can also do under the collarbone as well. And then if you want like Michelle Obama arms, you can always like contour the muscles of the shoulder, like right here. And it just adds that little extra something, something. And I'm going to take a little bit of the darker color and just intensify this shading a little bit. And you can even take a smaller brush to really be precise with your application, especially like right here. Now I'm going to move ahead to brows, and I'm going to be doing them with a black gel liner. I'm using the NYX one in the color Jet Black, and I'm using my favorite little eyebrow brush. This is the Essence Precise eyeliner brush. I think it costs like $1. And I'm going to be doing very, very thin pretty straight brows. I want to go for a true 80s brow, but I'm going to start it higher than my natural brow. I'm just going to kind of sketch this in first. This is very scary, doing a stark black brow on pure white skin. So that's what I'm going to map out first. Then I can go in and perfect it later. Don't want to make them much thicker than this, honestly. So I'm like not breathing to do this. I really don't want to mess this up. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with that brow. Now to get the same on the other side. Ugh, kill me now. Guys, I did it and I didn't die. Though now looking in the monitor, I know that my face is crooked and that my brows are crooked, but I started this one way further in than this one. My natural brows are like that. Just fix that up real quick. In some drawings, she has full-on 80s goth makeup, and others, not so much. She just has the eyeliner. Today, I think I'm going to do a very slight touch of 80s goth. I'm going to do a tiny bit of shadow right in here in the inner portion of the brow area. But first, I think I'm going to line my eyes. And for that, I'm going to be using the same grays that I used to contour. And I'm going to take the darkest gray first on a flat, straight-edged synthetic brush. I'm just going to take a little bit of that dark gray, and I'm literally just going to kind of draw a line from where my brow ends and just heading downwards. Then I'm blending it towards the outside of my eye. And I want it to accompany the contour of my nose. See, this is where it's tricky. My face, you can really tell how asymmetrical it is. Here, the bridge of my nose continues straighter than this one. This one just kind of goes like whoop in curves. So I'm gonna have to figure this out. I might have to elongate this brow, but then it'll look crazy long. But I might just have to. Just gonna go back in with that liner and make this brow a little bit longer. Now that that's done, I'm going to just intensify this area a little bit. Then I'm not going to make it accompany the bridge of my nose all the way down, otherwise I'll have to extend my liner all the way kind of to the bridge of my nose. So I'm just kind of going straight with it, trying to create a straight line and always blending it inwards. This helps to disguise the brow cover-up as well. I'm going to take the white shadow to kind of straighten up this edge. I'm using it as if it were concealer, but now that I've set my face, I can't use any cream products on top of it. So I just kind of have to make do with powders. And then, because obviously flat brushes aren't the ideal tool for blending things out, I'm going to go in with a small pencil brush, and I'm going to mix the two grays on that brush so I can start blending this out. And then I'm just going to take the lightest gray on the pencil brush to keep blending that out and run it through my crease, and then blending it outwards into like a point. I'm going to take a flatter brush to do that. And 80s goth makeup was very much about extending the eye shape, doing like the ancient Egyptian eye. And I'm going to take a little bit of that darker gray, just intensifying this inner portion. I mean, I guess I am doing full-on 80s makeup. Said I wasn't going to, but who am I kidding? Kind of couldn't resist, honestly. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and line my eyes, and I'm going to use a mixture of liners. I'm going to start off with the gel liner. I just find that easier for like the under eye area and stuff. And then I'm going to perfect the edges with the NYX Epic Ink Liner. And I'm also going to use that to do the little drawing on this eye. So I'm just going to load that same brush that I used for my eyebrows. And I'm not going to do a crazy cat eye like most goth looks from the 80s. This is going to be a much more subtle one. Just going to start by lining my top lash line like I would normally. Man, I haven't used a gel liner on my lash line in such a long time. I find it easier to use gel liners than liquid liners. You kind of have less chance of messing things up. I'm going to extend that outer line a little bit, but I think that's it. I think that's the extent that I am extending this for. Then I'm going to take that and also line my bottom lash line with it, making sure to connect this outer corner, just going real close to the lash line. And then this inner corner is where I'm going to switch to my liquid liner. I just find it easier and you can be more precise with a liquid liner. And I'm extending my inner corner. I'm joining that up with the bottom line and the top line. It's kind of become the same size as this one, so I'm going to extend this one a tiny bit just so that they're not the same size. Going to thicken that line up a tiny bit. Now that that's done and they're somewhat even, I'm going to tightline my waterline using the Milk Makeup Longwear Gel Eyeliner in the color Boss. I love this pencil for tightlining my eyes because it's got a tiny tip so you can get in there somewhat comfortably, way more comfortably than most pencils anyway. I absolutely hate tightlining my eyes. With this one, it's not that bad. I'm also working it into the roots of my lashes. I don't want any skin tone peeking through. I want this to be completely black. Now I'm just going to load my lashes with some mascara. I'm going to be using the Hourglass Caution Mascara just because I feel like I can be really precise with the applicator and I don't want to get mascara on my lids or anything. I don't want to have to do a cleanup on white skin. That would be awful. So I just want to make sure that I don't get any mascara anywhere else but my lashes. Oh, I forgot to do the little drawing thing. I'll do that after. That's fine. Now using the Epic Ink Liner, I'm going to draw her little squiggle. And some people draw it just like a spiral. Some people bring it down and then the spiral. When I first cosplayed, I did the down and then the spiral. I think today I'm just going to do the full-on spiral to change things up a bit. And I don't want to make this too big. I'm going to start it kind of coming out almost horizontally. I want to make sure it's round. And it's just a little swirl. Oh, I'm deaf now. And you can go back and thicken up the line if you need to. I tried to draw it as delicately as I could. I'm so excited now. Now we're almost done. Her makeup is actually super simple, super easy, and you can skip all the shading that I did. That was honestly just cuz. I might actually straighten this up a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to take a very small brush, flat brush with the dark gray. I'm going to go in and draw that line as precisely and as straight as I can. Blend it inwards. That just polishes the look up a bit if you're really precise with your lines. Now I'm going to move on to lips, and I am going to do the shading on the outer corners of my mouth. I'm using the lightest gray, and I'm just shading this area a little bit. I just find that it makes my lips look poutier and cuter. Then I'm also going to shade under my bottom lip. This just, again, makes the bottom lip look a little bit poutier. It adds a little bit of volume to your lip. Then I'm going to take a tiny bit of the darker gray to intensify that. Then for the lips, I'm going to be using the blackest lipstick known to man. It is the Black Moon Cosmetics Sleepwalker. And I don't know if I'm going to do a super 80s lip. I'll see how it turns out. For the goth lip, they used to do a really, really pointed Cupid's bow. I'll see what I'm feeling. But I'm just going to go ahead in with the doe foot applicator first. She doesn't really have really big lips, so I'm not going to overdraw mine too much. Now, I'm going very little by little with this lip because there's no taking it back. There's no fixing it if I make a mistake. You can't really patch up a white base. So just take your time, take it slow, and you'll get there. This is a very classic lip shape. And I am kind of pointing the Cupid's bow a little bit. Then I'm also kind of overdrawing the corners just because I like to do that. I want to just quickly add some lashes and then we're done. I'm going to go in with the Ardell number 600. These are pretty natural. I don't want anything crazy with the lashes because big lashes are very much a trend of today, not so much the 80s, but these just give a slight enhancement to my own lashes. So I'm going to do that off camera and then I'll be back to show you the finished look. And this is the finished look. You can see the lashes I chose are very natural. They just add a little bit more volume to my own lashes and a tiny bit of length. And then I got this ankh necklace, which I got off Amazon, and then I just changed the chain that it came with for a leather strap. And then this wig is also from Amazon. I'm going to leave everything linked down below. It already came with the side part, which I think is very fitting for death. And it's just a little bit messy, a little bit tousled. Oh, now it's not staying. God damn it. Why did I have to touch it? It was perfect. Ah! So yeah, as I said, super simple, super easy. This didn't take me that long. I would just recommend practicing doing liner a lot if you're not confident with liner. Maybe trying a gel liner. That makes things a lot easier. I know it does for me. Oh, I can't turn too much because I didn't paint the back of my arms. That's fine. But I'm just so happy about this. It's like, it's crazy. I love Death so much, and as I said, it was my first cosplay, so she does have a special little place in my heart, and to see what I did back then and then see what I've done now, it's just like, you can see the growth and the progress. And I mean, I dressed up like her the first time, I think I was in high school, so I didn't know how to do makeup, so I'm really happy with this. I'm like, I can't stop staring at myself in the mirror. I'm Death. I'm like too giddy. I can't stop smiling, which is appropriate. She's a very smiley and happy character. So yeah, that's about it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you've never read Sandman, I highly recommend it. There's also a spin-off that I love created by Jill Thompson, and it's called The Little Endless Storybook, and she draws them like in a super cute style, and she uses watercolors, which is my favorite form of painting, and it's just so cute and so lovely. So if you don't want to read necessarily the whole Sandman series, maybe try one of the spin-offs. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my patrons who support me. And don't forget to check out my Patreon this month for a lot of behind the scenes and extra content. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow for another Halloween tutorial. I'll see you then. Bye. Oh, I can't do that because my hand doesn't match the rest of me. Whoops.